Hello and welcome back to Ruben Uncut. Today, part two of my continuing coverage of Donald Trump's Agenda 47. I don't know how committed I am to this project, I'll be honest with you, because they keep making more videos. And I don't know if I actually want to watch every single one of them, although it would make me incredibly aware of Donald Trump's platform. Let's get into it. I have also noticed that the order the videos are on his website is not consistent, which is also annoying for me personally in making this video. But we're going to see where we can get with it. All right, let's start off with President Donald Trump calls for the death penalty for human traffickers. Now, before we get into this, I will just state that I'm generally opposed to the death penalty on a moral level. I don't think it's super valuable for society. And I don't think it's worth having the possibility of innocent people being executed by the state and thereby making me as a taxpayer a murderer. So let's get into it, shall we? Okay, that's interesting.
I was thrilled to.
That's interesting. The title that's listed above the video is not the same title in the title card for the video. Very interesting. It says stopping human trafficking.
Host a screening at.
Wait, did it say child trafficking? It does say specifically child trafficking, although it should be noted that it should be called human trafficking because humans of all ages are trafficked in both slavery and sexual slavery. This is not just a child issue, even though children being human trafficked is the most horrific of these incidents. And however, it is also not statistically the majority of these incidents.
The important new film, Sound of Freedom, about the power.
And he's it starts with an ad. It starts for a shameless plug for a movie. I haven't seen this movie. And I will not be judging the movie until I see it. I do plan on seeing it at some point because I would like to have an opinion on it. Until I see it, will not have a full opinion on it. I will say that I don't appreciate Jim Caviezel using the movie to promote adrenochrome lies and myths. Seriously, if you look even remotely into adrenochrome for a moment, you will discover several facts. One, it's a synthetic drug made in a lab. And B, anyone can just buy it on the internet. It's not some rare drug that only the criminal elites of our society can possess. It's just oxidized adrenaline, and we literally already can synthesize adrenaline.
Power of faith in overcoming evil, and in particular the.
That is a weird way to put the premise of the movie, which is about a guy doing special ops to rescue children who are being trafficked.
Evil of child trafficking, big problem. We had it down to the lowest number in many years just 4 years ago, and now it's.
That's a really, really, that's one of those numbers that's non-falsifiable because you don't know. You can only know the number of children accounted for or who were captured. Also, it's worth noting that 500 children who were removed from their parents' custody by Donald Trump's administration were later found to have been trafficked throughout the United States, typically for menial labor. Oh, the hypocrisy. This man's policies literally led to over 500 children being human trafficked.
It's gone through the roof. Even though the fake news media has tried to ignore it, Sound of Freedom is.
Everyone believes in human trafficking. The concept of politicizing the problem of human trafficking is exploitative and borderline evil. Everyone should care about human trafficking. Everyone. And I do think everyone does. I think that this image he is painting is deeply problematic and divisive. He is politicizing an issue that should not be politicized. I'm not saying he can't make this part of his agenda. What I'm saying is he's using intentionally divisive language to spread this message. He wants to pretend like he is the only one who cares about it, which is both a lie and totally dishonest use of media.
It's been a national sensation and a colossal success at the box office, really big numbers. Everyone should see it. This is a very important film and very important movie.
You can't say the word film. Just notice that.
And it's a very important documentary all wrapped up in one.
Okay, it's not a documentary. There is a difference between a movie based on a true story and a documentary. That's a very, very important distinction to make, because I don't know if you know this, but it doesn't take a lot for a movie to be based on a true story. I am making no judgments on this current film at this time.
It's really about an issue that has to be discussed. Under my leadership, we did more than any administration in history.
So this is a thing that really bothers me. Technically, the crackdown on human trafficking started under Obama. The rollout of these issues started before Trump took office. And yet he's acting like he's the only one who is doing or has done anything. Never mind the fact that he actually directly is involved with numerous industries that are directly connected to human trafficking, like the modeling industry, which Trump has a lot of connection to via his various pageants.
To combat human trafficking and to end modern day slavery. In one of my first acts in office, I signed an executive order targeting transnational criminal organizations that traffic and exploit innocent people. I signed the Frederick Douglass Trafficking Victims Prevention and Protection Reauthorization.
The Frederick Douglass. That feels exploitative.
Authorization Act, authorizing $430 million to fight sex and labor trafficking. I signed legislation to crack down on foreign countries who are not meeting standards for eliminating trafficking, of which there are many. I also signed into law the Abolish Human Trafficking Act, which strengthened programs supporting survivors and provided more resources for ending modern slavery. We do have modern slavery, if you can believe it. Additionally, I created the first ever White House position.
Yes, I can believe it, because I've done basic research. You sound shocked, Trump. Do you think people are shocked?
Focused solely on combating human trafficking. And perhaps most importantly, we created the most secure border in U.S. history by far, dealing,
which resulted in the human trafficking of 500 children.
A major blow to the cartels and traffickers. We built hundreds of miles of wall. We renovated hundreds of miles of wall. We never had anything like it.
The wall is not going to stop all forms of human trafficking. Just so you're aware, human trafficking is very complex, and the international cartels that do it, a lot of it, they don't all come across the border, is what I'm saying.
And then I got Mexico free of charge to give us 28,000 soldiers to protect us from people coming into our country illegally. When I am back in the White House, I will immediately end the Biden border.
I mean, Mexico probably has some level of desire to protect the borders. I don't know. I would assume that they would have some level of interest in that.
Nightmare that traffickers are using to exploit vulnerable women and children. We will fully secure the border. I will wage war on the cartels just as I destroyed the ISIS caliphate, 100% gone.
Okay, first of all, ISIS is not gone. ISIS still exists. Hold on. Okay, to clarify one of Donald Trump's statements that he just made, and actually to inform myself as well. Despite the end of its territorial caliphate in 2019, so I guess he did end the caliphate, and the death of several of its leaders since, the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, ISIS, has demonstrated considerable resilience. It continues to operate as highly active insurgency, particularly in rural Iraq and Syria. So we rate Donald Trump's claim half true. The caliphate, yes. ISIS, no.
100% destroyed. They'll come back now because we have a weak administration. I will use Title 42 to end the child trafficking crisis by returning all trafficked children to their families.
Really? Really? Because right now it's the Biden administration returning the children that you enabled to be trafficked to their parents. Why didn't you return children to their parents when we were asking you to? When you were doing it?
In their home countries and without delay. And
what if their parents are being held in America?
Will urge Congress to ensure that anyone caught trafficking children across our border receives the death penalty.
So I don't want to get into it here, but I'm against the death penalty, generally speaking. But also generally speaking, child traffickers, I still think the death penalty is problematic, but it is a crime that's hard to argue against the death penalty for. Like all I have is basic morality. The utility of it leans towards executing human traffickers.
Immediately, and that includes also for women, because women, as you know, are number one in trafficking. Children are actually number two. I want to.
Okay, I misunderstood. For a second, I thought he was saying we were going to punish women human traffickers and that they were the number one human traffickers. But no, he was talking about victims. Okay.
Thank Eduardo, Jim, Tim Ballard, and everyone else involved in this film for their incredible efforts and their great genius.
How are you going to be from New York and not be able to say film? Or is he from Jersey? Where the fuck is he from? I don't know.
Together, we will end the scourge of human trafficking, and we will defend the dignity of human life. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. Here's the thing. That's honestly, I mean, like, here's the thing about this politically. On the face of it, it's like, yeah, I agree with that. But then you listen to the actual video and it's like, this is an ad for a movie. What? An ad for seriously? Damn, Trump, what the balls, bro? We're going to keep on theme here with children. Going to rise of childhood illnesses. Let's see what Trump has to say about this. I don't think there's a movie he can promote for this one. Could be wrong. Public health and environment. Okay.
In recent decades, there has been an unexplained.
Okay, I feel like some of these have the same title card and then some of them don't.
An alarming growth in the prevalence of chronic illnesses and health problems, especially in children. We've seen a stunning rise in autism, autoimmune disorders, obesity, infertility, serious allergies, and respiratory challenges. It's time to ask what is going on.
Okay, so most of that is true. Although in fairness to the autism one, we didn't start tracking autism or were even aware of autism until the mid 20th century. And we're still learning about autism. What I'm saying is that not all of the rise in autism is necessarily an indicator that there are now more autistic people, because in the past we weren't actively checking for it. We have only recently started actively making sure we were aware that autistic people exist. So that one, it's a little bit harder to correlate the concept of it rising. Because we only started looking for it within like the last few decades. And we're still learning how to look for it.
Going on? Is it the food that they eat? The environment that we live in?
Okay, so right away he's I know you're going to say, Ruben, just stop the video before he even finished his thought. And that's fair. But my problem here is that he's going to frame this as a question. When you frame something like this as a question, you are making an implication. And he's going to go somewhere with it. Let's see where he goes with it.
The overprescription of certain medications? Is it the toxins and chemicals that are present in our homes? Every year we spend hundreds of billions of dollars.
Ironically, Republicans are fighting removals of gas stoves that are poisoning us. But so right here, he's just throwing out different things that people can be concerned about. It is not very likely that while there is currently some studies going into possible connections between the taking of Tylenol while pregnant and autism, saying like, is it the overprescription of certain drugs? He's just picking out specific medical paranoias to sound scary.
To treat these chronic problems rather than looking at what is causing them in the first place.
Okay, first of all, to say that no one is looking to see what's causing these things in the first place is a ludicrous lie. You want to know the truth about food science? Is that food science is complicated as fuck. And food science is typically only paid for by the food industry. And yeah, that has its own problems. But to say that no one is looking is not true. There are bound to be medical associations looking into this stuff. I haven't looked it up, but the idea that zero, maybe that I could be wrong, I guess. I'm not going to. Let's just finish this stupid video.
Too often our public health establishment is too close to Big Pharma. They make a lot of money, Big Pharma.
It's very strange to hear a president actively encourage distrust of public institutions. Which is not me saying that we shouldn't keep close regulatory eyes on our close regulatory systems. Who watches the watchman is a valid question. However, he's throwing out a lot of implications without a lot of evidence. He's not building a real argument. He's building a narrative of distrust. He's trying to appeal to the part of you that distrusts things.
Corporations and other special interests, and does not want to ask the tough questions about what is happening to our children's health. If Big Pharma defrauds American patients.
There's a lot of things in our children's health that we are aware of. And this is a really strange argument to make. Do you remember when Barack Obama was president? You may not remember this. But Michelle Obama, the first lady, actively promoted exercise and diet regularly in the public sphere. There were whole PSAs made by her. And it was about eating healthy, eating like vegetables and getting proper nutrients and being physically active. And Michelle Obama really pushed this type of propaganda about being healthy. And Republican and conservatives were like, how dare you tell us how to eat? And now here we have Donald Trump being like, they don't do anything. They've never done anything. They don't care about eating healthy or looking into these things. They don't do anything. It's just nothing. He's just pulling shit out of his ass.
And taxpayers or puts profits above people. They must be investigated and held accountable.
You know what? Fuck it. Let's audit everybody. Audit everybody. I mean, like, why not? Why not? I mean, it would be hugely expensive and costly to the American public, but fuck it. You know? I mean, I can't totally argue with Trump. Corruption exists. Now, the problem, though, is that corruption, while it becomes systemic, corruption only becomes systemic as the more individuals buy into the corruption. Now, to be fair, the more corruption there is, the more pressure there is to buy into corruption. So it's a two-part thing. Everything is a two-part thing. There is the collective and the individual. These things interact and exist simultaneously. If someone tries to produce a narrative for you where these things do not interconnect, they're selling something. Or they have no internal monologue, you know, those kind of weirdos.
When I'm back in the White House, I will establish a special presidential commission of independent minds who are not bought and paid for by Big Pharma, and I will charge.
Like, it's hard to take seriously, Trump, because you said you were going to drain the swamp, and then you just hired tons of lobbyists into your cabinets.
Them with investigating what is causing the decades-long increase in chronic illnesses. I understand Big Pharma.
We actually have but we actually know a lot about what causes it. There are lots of things in society that we don't know if they lead to this or not. But the reality is that we are aware of some things that cause this. And one of them is the excessive amount of subsidized sugar in American diets. We know that's bad for us. We've been talking about it for decades. Artificial sweeteners, also bad for us. We have 30 years of data on artificial sweeteners that all indicate that it increases obesity, increases heart disease, increases hypertension. It makes these things go up, not down. The people with 30 years of data on it, we know there are a good number of things in our society that we know are bad for us, like lead. We're still removing the lead from our society. The fact that Flint, Michigan happened, oh, and by the way, if you live in Columbus, Ohio, get yourself a goddamn water filter because you're drinking lead. We are constantly being exposed to things that we know are bad, and we don't do anything about it. How about we address those things first before you pretend like this is some bizarre mystery? We know so much more about this than you are letting on.
Pharma, I believe better than anybody else. I know where they're coming from. And then I
have a lot of problems with Big Pharma, but like, he's acting like Big Pharma is like the step before the unhealthiness. Normally, Big Pharma steps in at the point of unhealthiness and either makes it better or worse. Big Pharma is highly unlikely to be the major cause of most of these problems. Big Pharma, which is not to say that Big Pharma probably doesn't have causes of, I mean, there was the whole opioid crisis. That was Big Pharma. So I guess you could say that opioid murder, definitely a health problem related to Big Pharma. We know that alcohol is unhealthy, but we do almost nothing about it. What do you want?
I will ask them to publish recommendations for how every American child can have a safe and healthy childhood. This is a conversation that is long overdue, and it's a
constantly ongoing conversation. Acting like it's not happening, acting like he's the one who's going to bring it to us. Bunch of white savior bullshit.
Conversation that American families deserve. American families.
We've been trying to have this conversation for decades. And you know what happens? People are just like, don't tell me what to do. Insane. And he's not even, and he hasn't brought up any of the childhood diseases that we've minimized via medical advancement. That's an interesting point. There you go.
Must have this conversation, and they must have a leader, a president, who can do something about this problem. And I will do that. Thank you.
Wow. 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 I guess I shouldn't be surprised. All right. Let's look at ending the scourge of drug addiction. Good luck. We've had the war on drugs for decades at this point. Oh, I get it. I get it now.
In recent decades,
that represents the overall topic and not necessarily what he's going to be talking about.
There has been an unexplained and alarming growth in the prevalence of chronic illnesses and health problems, especially in children. We've seen a stunning rise in autism, autoimmune disorders, obesity, infertility, serious allergies, and
wait a minute, what the fuck? Am I looking at the right video? Ending the scourge of drug addiction in America. This is exactly how the previous video started. Okay, well, it looks shorter than the previous video. Okay, we're gonna see what happens. Maybe are they really copy and pasting the scripts?
Challenges. It's time to ask what is going on. Is it the food that they eat, the environment that we live in, the overprescription of certain medications? Is it the toxins and chemicals that are present in our homes?
It's the same.
Every year we spend hundreds of billions of dollars to treat these chronic problems rather than looking at what is causing them in the first place.
I just remembered something. Preventative care. A big thing we've been trying to get into insurance and medical practice is preventative care. But insurance companies don't want to pay for it because it's expensive. Although some insurance companies are starting to realize that it makes things less expensive later on down the line. He's acting like we're doing nothing when things are being
done. Too often our public health establishment is too close to big pharma. They make a lot of money, big pharma. Big corporations and other special interests, and does not want to ask the tough questions about what is happening to our children's health. What the fuck is happening? If big pharma defrauds American patients and taxpayers or puts profits above people, they must be investigated and held accountable. When I'm back in the White House, I will establish a special presidential commission of independent minds who are not bought and paid for by big pharma, investigating what is causing the decades-long increase in chronic illnesses. I understand big pharma, I believe better.
Okay, hold on. We're going to test something. Let's try this again. Let's make sure I didn't. Okay, let's try it one more time. Let's see what happens when I do this.
In recent decades, there has been an unexplained and alarming growth in the prevalence of chronic illnesses and health problems, especially in children. We've seen
these fucking dumbasses have the same video for two different topics. The scourge of drug addiction video is just not there. Unless it's this celebration of 250 years of American independence at the Iowa State Fairgrounds. Let's see what happens when I click on it. Laugh my ass off if he talking about childhood illness again. A salute to America 250. Okay. It's a different
3 years from now, the United States will celebrate the biggest and most important milestone in our country's history. 250 years of American independence.
Why is 250? I mean, it's a higher number than 200, but like, wouldn't a full century be more important? What makes 250 better than 249? Just saying.
What a great country, and we have to keep it that way. But that's why, as a nation, we should be preparing for a most spectacular birthday party. We want to make it the best of all time. Here is my plan to give America's founding in 1776, the incredible anniversary.
Let me pitch you a party I'm going to throw. Hey, everybody, if I'm president, we're going to throw a hell of a banger. I swear to God. It's going to be the hootenanny of the century. Actually, 2.5 centuries.
Truly deserves. On day one, I will convene a White House task force called Salute to America 250.
I'm going to spend taxpayer money on this thing.
It will be
fair, which is fair.
Responsible for coordinating with state and local governments to ensure not just one day of celebration, but an entire year of festivities across the nation.
We're going to spend a lot of money on it. We will spend as much money on propaganda if we have to. Get out there and party like it's 1999. I don't think that reference works. You're right. Get out there and party like it's 1776.
Starting on Memorial Day, 2025, and continuing through July 4th, 2026.
Okay. Oh, wait.
Second, I will work with all 50 nations starting on Memorial Day, 2025, and continuing through July 4th, 2026. Second, I will work with.
That's a lot of money. That's going to be a huge project. Good luck with your deficit.
With all 50 governors, Republican and Democrat alike, to create the Great American State Fair, a unique one-year exhibition featuring pavilions from all 50 states. It'll be something. The Great American State Fair will showcase the glory of every state.
We're getting real close to fascist stuff here. We're getting like this. This is what they do in military countries, by the way. Like what he's describing is the type of stuff that people like China do, like North Korea does, like fucking Russia does. They do this kind of shit, throwing that out there. They do this stuff for the monarchy in Britain too, with taxpayer money there also.
In the Union, promote pride in our history, and put forth innovative visions for America's future.
This pride in our past thing is very interesting to me. Okay, so like here's the reality of the past. The past sucks. The past is terrible. The past is the worst shit ever because believe it or not, all of human civilization is building towards the future to get the fuck away from the past. That is one of the consistents throughout time and history. Society moves forward to make things easier and better to survive. The past was full of murderers, pedophiles, rapists, traitors, and some of just the most goddamn evil people who ever lived. And half of those people were only that goddamn evil because it was all they knew how to be. Because it used to be civilization was based around the idea that someone could murder you and take your shit at any moment. And we still have robberies and muggings nowadays, but not like that. Not like Genghis Khan comes and he destroys your village and rapes all your women. Like, when was the last time you were just living your life in your village and then the next thing you knew, every single neighbor you had was either murdered or raped? You don't live like that anymore. The history is terrible. The time period he's talking about, the history he's talking about, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. History is full of the good stuff too. And the good stuff, though, is every step we took forward. And a lot of people, some of whom were actually pretty terrible, helped take those steps forward. And that's good. Some of history is good. But to go around and be like, oh, we should be proud of our founding fathers. People who didn't know what a dinosaur was and thought it was cool to have sex with 12-year-olds, which isn't to say that I'm not eternally grateful to our founding fathers for founding this country where I would have the freedom to mention how gross and disgusting they were, which is the ultimate freedom to criticize your country and government. This is what he's describing is literally the government stroking itself off in front of everybody.
My hope is that the amazing people of Iowa will work with my administration to open.
Also, the fact that it's in Iowa tells you a lot because that everything in Iowa is Iowa is controlled by the Corn Caucus. That's not what they're called. I'm sorry, but the Corn Lobby controls Iowa, and it's the reason we have the Iowa Caucus in Iowa because there's just so much money there, and this is he is buttering up Iowa. Is part of this.
Open up the legendary Iowa State Fairgrounds to host the Great American State Fair and welcome millions and millions of visitors from around.
He's going to make sure that only Iowa won't be able to use their own state fairgrounds for their own shit for over a year. Actually, wait. I got to look at a calendar. But around a year. That's kind of funny. Think about it that way, Iowa.
Around the world to the heartland of America for this special one-time festival. Together we will build it and they will come. Third, alongside the Great American State Fair, we will host major sporting contests for high school athletes. These are great athletes, wonderful athletes from fantastic high schools all around the country.
High school athletics are overly elevated in our society for what is essentially just children playing games. Wake up and read a book, America.
These Patriot Games will allow young Americans from every state to show off the best of American skills, sportsmanship, and competitive spirit. Fourth, I will sign an.
So basically, sports, reinforce the societal values we want to in our propaganda.
Executive order to bring back our National Garden of American Heroes, which we want to build very badly. Commission order.
National Garden of American Heroes. I wonder who he'd put in there.
For the first 100 statues to populate this new statuary park honoring the greatest Americans of all time. Fifth, as president, I will invite the leaders and citizens of nations around the world to visit the United States in honor of our 250th anniversary. It's going to be great. America's tourist industry should get ready because we're going to have a lot of people coming. It will be a record year.
Hopefully there's not a pandemic. Because that would be hilariously the worst thing that could possibly happen during this. I'm not saying there will be. Knock on fucking wood. I don't want to die from, like The Last of Us type what do you call it? Fungus. By the way, scientists are currently saying they think the next pandemic will be fungus based. Which is a problem. It's a problem.
And finally, and most importantly, I will ask America's great religious communities to pray for our nation and our people as we prepare for this momentous occasion.
Well, he's just... Okay, first of all, I do hope that people in churches pray for America and whatnot. However, to bring that into a state-funded event with taxpayer money, is that going to be done with taxpayer money? Is it?
Occasion. From the very beginning, America has been a country sustained and strengthened by prayer and by our communities of faith.
Thomas Jefferson once cut every supernatural reference out of the Bible with a razor blade.
As we chart a course toward the next 250 years, let us come together and rededicate ourselves as one nation under God. Thank you.
Let's take that whole, let's just break down that barrier between church and state, huh, Trump?
Joe Biden has launched an illegal foreign invasion of our country, allowing a record number of illegal aliens to store.
All right, maybe he'll actually talk about drug addiction in ending the nightmare of the homeless, drug addicts, and dangerously deranged. That makes it sound like you are... The fact that you end it with the dangerously deranged makes it sound like you are pointing to these types of people as the cause and not the symptom. Because that's the problem, is these people are the symptom, not the cause of this problem. Homelessness plan. Okay, it's straightforward.
Our once great cities have become unlivable, unsanitary nightmares, surrendered to the homeless, the drug addicted, and the violent and dangerously deranged.
He's making it sound like America is a sci-fi movie from the 80s and early 90s. Which America is like, I don't know. Cleveland apparently murders up here, and I go to Cleveland all the time, and it's fine. Relatively speaking, I mean, every city can be better, but like, it's not like every time I go to the city, it's escape from New York. I don't know. Maybe things are worse in New York. Maybe things are worse in LA. I don't know. I mean, I hear pretty bad things about LA, but I don't feel like LA itself is at escape from LA levels. Although people are escaping from LA.
Arranged. We're making many suffer for the whims of a deeply unwell few, and they are unwell indeed.
Where are you going with this, man?
Homeless have no right to turn every park and sidewalk into a place for them to squat and do drugs.
Okay, it's just an anti-homeless video. It's just straight up. It's just gonna be straight up anti-homelessness. Okay. View the people who you're making it sound like the homeless are victimizing us. Homeless people are a symptom of a society with problems that aren't being dealt with. Oh, sweet Jesus, where's he going with this?
Americans should not have to step over piles of needles and waste as they walk down a street in a beautiful city, or at least once beautiful city.
LA was never beautiful.
Because they've changed so much over the last 10 years. Our first consideration should be the rights and safety of the hardworking, law-abiding citizens who make our society function. When I'm back in the White House, we will use
The fact that homeless people exist means that our society does not function. They are a symptom of the problems, not the problem itself.
every tool, lever, and authority to get the homeless off our streets. We want to take care of them, but they have to be off our streets. There is nothing compassionate about letting these individuals live in filth and squalor rather than getting them the help that they need. We need professionals to help them.
We have been Republicans have done everything they can to stop this from being the solution. There are tons of places where they have tried to do these things. Actually, is it in tech? I forget where it is, but some people they have discovered that just giving people homes actually works to get them off the streets. Okay? So what gets people off the streets? A social safety net gets people off the streets. Don't believe me? We already have historical precedent. We used to live in a country with no social safety net. What happened? The streets started to fill with people who were homeless because they were poor or disabled or couldn't work for some other reason, or single mothers. They just started filling up the streets, begging for stuff because they couldn't do anything. So what did society do? Well, they created these things called sanitariums and debtors' prisons, where our plan was, just take all the homeless people and lock them up. That's what we did. I'm going to tell you right now, it didn't work. It was one of the most inhumane, draconian things we've ever done. And the most fucked up part is that we put people in those sanitariums for things that people lead almost completely normal lives with now. Things like dyslexia and ADHD and autism, all things that some people have that they live completely normal lives with. We would have just locked them up and thrown away the key at the turn of the 20th century, into the 20th century. We didn't start to change these policies until the 1970s. We sterilized people with disabilities up until the 1970s. We used to take people's children from them if they had any type of disability and convince the parents that locking them in a sanitarium for the rest of their lives was the best, most humane thing we could do for them. And that was a lie. That was like when SeaWorld says that killer whales live longer at SeaWorld than in the wild, which is a lie because they live about 25 years in captivity and about 60 in the wild.
For a small fraction of what we spend upon Ukraine, we could take care of every homeless.
Don't make people choose between Ukraine and homeless people. It's a false dichotomy. We take money for those things from completely different places. The military budget goes into Ukraine, not the social safety net budget.
Veteran in America, our veterans are being treated horribly.
And veterans don't benefit from being part of the military-industrial complex at the end of the day. Fun, right?
Likewise, with all of the money we will save by ending mass unskilled migration, we will have a huge...
It's not going to save anybody money. It's literally going to make things cost more. We're literally going to have trouble filling positions and jobs. Like almost every economist disagrees with him on the thing he just said.
Dividend to address this crisis in our own country. Under my strategy, working with states, we will ban urban camping wherever possible. We're
going to make being homeless a crime, is what that means. Just straight up totalitarian shit.
Of these bans will be arrested, but they will be given the option to accept treatment and services if they're willing to be rehabilitated. Many of them don't want that.
Many of them don't want to have the state gain control over them and their autonomy, okay? Homeless shelters frequently have problems. One of the things he's talking about here, even though he's not saying it because I think he's just piecemealing a bunch of different talking points into one, is that a lot of homeless people don't want to go to homeless shelters. Why? Because homeless shelters are dangerous. Not all of them, but some of them are dangerous. Some of them are poorly run, and some of them will throw you out for various problems. There are lots of reasons why some homeless people choose not to engage in these things. because they don't feel safe, or because they don't want to give up their autonomy to the state, which is what Donald Trump is advocating here right now.
But we'll give them the option. We will then open up large parcels of.
We will give them the option to go to jail or a sanitarium. Oh, wait, we don't call them sanitariums anymore.
Inexpensive land, bring in doctors, psychiatrists, social workers, and drug rehab specialists, and create 10 cities where the homeless can be relocated and their problems identified. But we'll open up our cities again.
Wait. Oh yeah, no, we're going to have a brand new tent city for them outside the city. That's the plan. Okay, thanks. I mean, I guess that's better than prison. It's better than prison. It's better than prison. You know what? That is better than prison.
And make them livable and make them beautiful. For those who are just temporarily down on their luck, we will work to help them quickly reintegrate into a normal life. For those who have addictions, substance abuse, and common mental health problems, we will get them into treatment. And for those who are severely mentally ill and deeply disturbed, we will bring them back to mental institutions where they belong, with the goal of reintegrating them back into society once they are well enough to manage. It's a tough task, a very tough task, what's taken place on the streets.
Okay, so I will say some of this is not the worst. A separate tent city they can live in, I don't know if that'll really solve some of the problems you're concerned about here, Trump, but it's not the worst idea I've ever heard. That being said, the programs he's describing would be incredibly expensive. I find it hard to believe that Republicans would actually deliver on these promises, because this would be an incredibly expensive thing to do. I feel like there's a very good chance that this is all just empty promises. Out of all the videos I've watched, this is one of the ones I feel least likely to come true. Also, he's still trying to use fear and dehumanization to sell this idea, which is a problem.
What's taken place with their taking so much drugs.
Like you don't have to say the part about some of them don't want it, don't want to be rehabilitated. You don't have to say that part. All you have to do is say, we'll give them the choice. Because that's almost the same message without the dehumanization. And it's important because that is ultimately the thing. There are many homeless people who are not comfortable with the idea of giving the state their autonomy because they believe the state will abuse them.
But the fact is, we're going to try. This strategy will be far better and also far less expensive than spending vast sums of taxpayer money to house the homeless in luxury hotels without addressing their underlying issues. And they have so many of these underlying issues.
Will it cost less than that? The plan you laid out, if we did it in every single state that has a huge homeless problem, it's going to be expensive, like wildly expensive, especially if you're going to do the tent city thing. Then you got to buy land, then you got to buy all the stuff to set up on it. You have to build new infrastructure for that. I mean, I guess tents are inexpensive, but that makes me paranoid that we're talking about like it's going to end up like that fire festival.
Issues and needs. This is how I will end the scourge of homelessness and make our cities clean and safe.
It is deeply dehumanizing that he would call it a scourge. He is still pushing this as homeless people are the problem, not the symptom. And that's a problem.
Safe and beautiful once again. We will do it. We will bring back America. Thank you.
There's a lot in that last one. A lot of stuff going on there. I sincerely doubt that that's how it will go down, though. And he's furthering negative concepts of homeless people. All right, next up, we got liberating America from Biden's regulatory onslaught. We're going to talk about the regulation. Deregulation. By the way, deregulation frequently precedes recessions. Sometimes it takes a long time for the effects of the deregulation to hit. Let's see what he says.
Cutting wasteful and job-killing regulations was a key part of my America First economic agenda that built the greatest economy in the history of the world. As I work to quickly save America from Joe Biden's economic disaster, and that's what it is, one of the great economic disasters.
How should I put this? Like, I can't tell if these are scripted or if he's just going off the cuff, because the way he talks about the topics is bad. And I don't mean like morally. I mean like he doesn't understand how to talk about things. Like what he does know. So in sales, we have this thing called an emotional sale. So what does that mean? Well, it means you have to use the right language and words to get a person to emotionally connect to the thing that you're selling. And that's what he's doing. And he's good. That's what he's good at. That's what all of these videos have been. He's trying to connect emotionally with the person to do an emotional sale. What's he selling? Himself.
Of all time. I will restore my famously successful executive order requiring that for every one new regulation, 2 old regulations must be eliminated.
So, like, the thing right there is that that's nonsense. That's a nonsense policy. Why is it a nonsense policy? Because you have to actually look at a regulation to determine its effectiveness and its value to society before you can just get rid of it. What he's talking about could prevent life-saving regulations from coming into place sooner, but also could accidentally lead to the removal of regulations that should not have been removed because they needed an arbitrary third one to get rid of. It's not a well thought out idea.
And I will ask Congress to make it permanent. We will again implement a regulatory.
That could be shit. You'd eventually, because it would have diminishing returns, you would eventually just get down to all the regulations that were necessary. And then you'd have to start clipping the necessary ones. Now, it'd be good to get down to only the most necessary, most effective regulations. But what he is describing won't necessarily bring us there and could easily remove regulations that are necessary. Because here's the thing about regulations. Some regulations are there for a reason. Like, very much so there for a reason. I've worked in regulated industries. If you do not have the regulations, people will fuck over other people. And it's easy because often the consumer does not understand what they are buying well enough to understand how they're being fucked.
Regulatory budget, putting a hard cap on the cost of regulations to the U.S. economy, instead of growing the size and scope of the federal government. Every single year we've been doing that. We will shrink it.
We have watched numerous videos now in the series where he has proposed things that would absolutely increase the size of the federal government. Like that homeless one we just watched. That would increase the size of the federal government because we need a regulatory body for that project.
Every year with aggressive cost reduction targets for each federal department. In addition, we will require that all agencies.
So the thing is that things like cutting budgets has to be done in context. And we do need ways to make sure that people are spending money efficiently. However, blanket open-ended statements like this could result in regulatory bodies not getting the funds that they need to be as effective as they want to be. And this will inconvenience everyone. For example, like when there was that Freedom of Information Act for all those COVID documents. People were mad it was taking them forever to release it. But the reason they were releasing it is because of how small the department that releases that stuff is. It's tiny. And those people have to go through every one of those documents before they're released and make sure that there is no medical data in it. And by that, I mean individual medical data. They have to take out every volunteer's name so that their HIPAA rights won't be violated. That's why it takes so long.
Regulatory guidance must be posted publicly in a central database or else be rendered null and void.
I don't have a problem with that concept. I'm also not 100% sure we don't already have that.
And many of them will in fact be null and void. This will effectively repeal a mountain of stealth regulations and
Just to be clear, I mean the having a database where you can look at it.
Threats that rogue bureaucrats have imposed without proper oversight. And I will sign a law to ban bureaucrats from taking any enforcement action based on informal guidance alone.
I will make regulations against the people who make regulations.
For example, never again will bureaucrats be allowed to bully and pressure banks.
You are a bureaucrat, Trump. Your success has been heavily based on your bureaucratic strategies.
To choke off their financially deplatformed, politically disfavored industries. We're not going to let that happen.
I dislike how often he uses the term choke off.
Next, I will bring the independent regulatory agencies such as the FCC.
He said it in part 1 too, people.
And the FTC back under presidential authority as the Constitution demands.
The Constitution does the Constitution demand that? I'd have to look into it. I don't think the Constitution says a lot about regulatory bodies. Also, he is talking about more executive power, so more power for him.
These agencies do not get to become a fourth branch of government, issuing rules and edicts all by themselves, and that's what they've been doing. I will require that they submit any regulations they're.
The thing is, though, is that congressmen don't know enough to regulate the actual industries. So we kind of need regulatory bodies. Like, I don't know if you've seen any of the interviews they've been having with tech leaders, but they're fucking embarrassing.
Considering for White House review. In addition, we will create an ultra-streamlined federal regulatory framework specifically for freedom cities, allowing them to be true frontiers for the return of U.S. manufacturing, the invention of new industries, the rebirth of economic opportunity, and safe and affordable.
If the Freedom Cities actually comes to be a thing, I'm gonna make 2 predictions. There will be an initial boom, and then they will slowly fall apart.
Living. Finally, I will require every federal employee to pass a new civil service test.
Did you know that right-to-work states have the worst rights for any workers, and they pay the least?
Demonstrating an understanding of our constitutional limited government. This will include command of due process rights, equal protection, free speech, religious liberty, federalism, the Fourth Amendment.
Whoa, are you into federalism or small government? Make up your mind.
Protections against unreasonable search and seizure. I know all about that at Mar-a-Lago, don't I?
Eat a dick.
And all other constitutional limits on federal power. We will put
You've literally just described a situation where you are going to make sure the executive branch has the most power.
Elected bureaucrats back in their place, liberate the U.S. economy, and attract millions of jobs and trillions of dollars to our shores. Thank you very much.
With my race to the bottom economics. Let's see how many videos we got left here. All right, I'm gonna call that the end for part 1 because this is effing exhausting. It looks like there are 6 more videos left. So I will be, oh my God, is there more than 6? Holy shit, there's more than 6. Oh my God. I guess this series is gonna be going on for a while. I'll probably interrupt it to do other things too, but I promise at some point I will have subjected myself to all this bullshit. Thank you for listening/watching Ruben Uncut. If you enjoyed what you heard or experienced here today, please like and subscribe on Spotify or YouTube or wherever you are listening or watching this bold product. Also, if you want to communicate with me because either you disagree or you do agree, please email the show at rubenuncut@gmail.com. I can't wait till we get to the video where he talks about murdering the Jedi, though.